Hey, welcome back to True-Moto-Resto, and this is the first video in a series where we're going to be tackling the GSX-R 750, the Junk-Yard Slabbie. Stay tuned. So yes, finally getting to the Junk-Yard Slabbie. 86 GSX-R 750, and yes, this did come from a salvage yard, a junkyard, and it is probably the worst condition motorcycle that I've ever tried to tackle. And I'll just give you a bit of a summary if you didn't see the other videos that they are out there on my channel, and they are on the playlist, but just quick synopsis of what we know so far with this hopeless bike. The obvious stuff, kind of skin deep here, is, you know, the bodywork is all there. That's the plus side of it. It's all complete. There's a few screws and fasteners missing here and there, but that's not a big deal. Most of the plastics, I think, have been repaired at some point, and obviously painted in this nasty canary yellow color. So that's all, that's the easy part of this restoration, I would say, is, you know, doing the cosmetic restore on this will be a walk in the park, I think, compared to some of the other issues that I'm going to encounter along the way. You'll remember from some other videos that the original fuel tank that was on this was rusted beyond repair. There was several attempts to use electrolysis and acid, and the number of holes that just appeared in that tank, it was wafer thin. It was not savable. Seat is trash. What else is going on with it? Yeah, pretty much absolutely everything. Tires are trash. They go completely flat within a day. They're cracked really badly. I'm 99% sure rear tires probably got a tube in it, so yeah, that's not great. Rear fenders missing, as they are on most of these bikes. Not sure yet what I'm going to do about that, if it's going to stay like it is or if I'm going to fabricate a rear fender for it from another one. The carburetors, this thing sat outside for a long time. And I've been spraying the carburetor since I got it back in May, so that's been, you know, 7 months at least, 8 months, something like that. I've been spraying them with penetrating oils religiously. Choke is still not working yet. The actual lever or bar here itself will move, but the choke plungers are stuck. They were all quite white and corroded. Most of that's gone away because I've been spraying it with penetrating oils and whatnot. On the plus side, they are free, they're not stuck. So my hope is that the internals are not corroded badly, even though it sat outside for many years. The old gas tank that was on here, the one that was rusted out, I took 10 liters of pure water out of it. I say pure water, it looked like chocolate milk because of the rust, but there was no gasoline in the original tank that was on here. This is a replacement one I got off eBay, but it was full of water. The good news was when I drained the engine from engine oil, there was no water in the crankcase. It was just oil, so that was good. I did get the engine to turn over. I had to find a few electrical issues, switches. I had to make a key for this temporarily. I got that to work. So yeah, the engine did turn over, and so that's not seized. That was a good story. The bad side of the story was there was no compression in any of the cylinders. That's not entirely true. There was 20 pounds in one cylinder, 40 pounds in another, and the other two were 0. And I did try some penetrants in the cylinders along with transmission fluid and acetone mixes. They soaked for days on end, turning it over in between. That did nothing to free up any potentially sticking rings, but I didn't really think it was that anyway. I think for having all of the cylinders problematic like that, my best guess is valves that are probably hung up or corroded or whatnot. So my biggest fear is, you know, what I'm going to find in the engine. How much corrosion and rust am I going to find in the engine itself? Particularly when I pull the valve cover off, I'm a little bit worried. I think if the cams and whatnot are in decent shape, I might be lucky enough to get away with like a valve job and that kind of stuff. Obviously, I'd take the whole thing apart and I'm going to do piston rings and everything. Well, but that to me is going to be the biggest concern. I was still hopeful to find a Bandit 1200. I wanted to do an engine swap. I was not successful in finding a donor. Oh, actually, that's not entirely true either. I did find a 1200 Bandit at a ridiculously good price, which is this one here. When I say ridiculously good price, I mean ridiculously good price. And the thing runs like a dream. It sounds good. It's cosmetically incredibly good. And I just can't in all good conscience part this out to donate that engine to this project, at least not at this point. So before I go any further with with taking the plunge in another Bandit, I'm still looking for one, but nothing has come along yet. So I think the first course of action is going to be to just investigate just how bad this engine is, what's causing the low compression. I would bet a pile of money on it being corroded valves that are just not seating properly. Yeah, and everything else is just as bad. The exhaust system, the mid pipe and the silencer, while they're cosmetically awful, are not bad from a structural perspective. However, the header pipes, I did find a number of significant holes and rust throughs on those, which is why there's another set sitting over there. Brakes, they're non-existent. So those will all have to be redone. What else is going on? Yeah, everything. The frame is, it's an aluminum frame, but it will need to be cleaned. I'm not going to strip it because I believe it's probably anodized. So we'll see how that cleans up. Tires obviously need to be done. All the minor mechanicals will have to be gone through. We're going to do new head bearings, new wheel bearings. All the fasteners, because this thing sat outside forever and a day, are going to have to be cleaned or replated or replaced or whatnot. Clutch cable. And you say, hey, wait a minute. Why is there a clutch cable on an 86? Shouldn't that be hydraulic? Yes, it should be hydraulic. But that would assume that is the original engine, which it is not. That is out of an 88 GSX-R 750. So the engine code there, which is R707, tells me that that's kind of 88, 89 GSX-R 750 engine. So that's been converted to a cable clutch, or the bike has been converted to a cable clutch by virtue of the fact that this is not the original engine. The original slave is still sitting here. The sprocket cover is smashed. I do have a replacement for that. And yeah, the electrical system it's intact, but probably in need of some going over. What else is there to say? Frame, I talked about that, should be fine, I hope. Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is going to be the engine. I mean, everything needs to be done, but the biggest challenge is going to be the engine. As far as the parts that I have now for this, obviously a new header pipe. In that box is a new windshield, because that one's cracked. I have new mirrors for it. This is a new solo seat cover. There's new cables. There's the missing chain guard there. I have carburetor kit, bearings, fork seals, all kinds of stuff. I have a rear fender there that I can potentially graft on to make that a much more OEM looking rear end if I choose to do so. I haven't decided yet what I'm doing with front turn signals. These will obviously be going away. So what am I going to do with the front signals? Are they going to be kind of OEM style? I don't know. We'll see. And the color scheme is going to be Skull Bandit. So I have all the decal kits here already, and the decal manufacturer sent me 3 color samples. So these are the 3 colors of green that go on the bike, and so I'm going to be using these to get paint scan matches for painting up the bodywork. So first steps here is going to be basically get this thing disassembled. The first thing I'm going to do is take off all the bodywork, and then I think I'm going to pull that cam cover just to have a look inside, at least satisfy myself that it's not a rusted mess in there. So this is definitely going to be the most challenging restoration project that I have ever undertaken. I've done a lot of restorations where I haven't had to do much of anything to the engine. I mean, I could find anything, right? There could be rust, there could be broken stuff, there could be who knows what. This is going to require a complete and total rebuild, is my guess. So yeah, it'll be definitely the most challenging, probably the most expensive, and yeah, I've got to do a couple of things. One is I really have to balance not putting more into this bike than it will ever be worth, especially because it has a replacement engine. It's not the original engine. So I have to be careful of that, but I also have to be careful on the inverse side of that argument, which is don't cheap out to the point where you end up sacrificing the integrity of the restoration because I don't replace things that I should replace, or whatever. So because I am somebody who works very much to a very, very strict budget on each of my restorations. I kind of set a budget based on what it's going to be, what I think the bike will be worth when it's done versus what I paid for it and how much I can safely put into it. So for those of you that don't know the process that I go through, I'll just explain it briefly for the restorations that I undertake. The main process that I follow is every step that I take, every piece that comes off is labeled. All the parts are bagged and tagged. Every single step is recorded in my notebook. So 1 to 150 steps, let's say, which is pretty typical stripping a bike down. I write down the step, what I've done in the step, any special notes I think might be important for reassembly. Each of the numbered steps, which you see here, for instance, down this margin, they will have a corresponding clear plastic sandwich bag number. So I use a lot of these Ziploc bags here for putting the parts in. So that'll get numbered. It will also get labeled with what the bolts are from. So if any reason part of my notebook gets damaged, if I spill something on it, then I can just go off what's actually written on the bag. And the process for reassembly is basically start at the last step and work my way all the way back, and I check off for the check mark after I've actually reassembled and put it all back together. So that's basically the route that I follow. The other thing that I do is I take a lot of pictures. And just when I think I have enough pictures, I take some more. You can never have enough. Take as many pictures as I can from as many different angles as possible. And inevitably, there's always one photo that I wish I had that I don't. So I take photos at every step of disassembly. So if I've taken a bunch of stuff off, I'll take all the same pictures again. I'll take some more stuff off, and I'll take all kinds of pictures again. That way, as you're kind of uncovering things, you're getting photographs which are good for reference later on. Now that's not to say the thing was perfect when you took it apart. Things were where they were supposed to be, but for the most part, it'll give you a kind of a good starting point. Is if you run into some trouble and you can't remember where something goes, or and again, I'll go to the point of like these two bodywork screws on this side, and the ones on the matching ones on the other side will be in one bag, labeled upper fairing to mid fairing mounting, and then these will go in a separate bag with a separate number, and that's the level of detail that I go to. and it just makes reassembly so much easier. So we're going to start off by stripping off all the bodywork. Most of the body work off. What I'm working on right now is getting this front fender off, because I can't get the fork brace off the top of the fender, because those nuts under there that are kind of seized on, and I really don't want to strip these Allen bolts out of the top. They're kind of very, very small. I think it's just number 3 Allen in there. So I'm going to soak those for a little bit in penetrating oil, and then I'll give those another go. So now that I've exposed all of this stuff, let's give you a quick walk around here. It's about as grimy in here as you would expect it to be. Something that sat outside for a long, long time. So this rear subframe is definitely going to have to get sandblasted. Some of this is just dirt. Battery box is rusty, that'll get sandblasted. And if it looks like there's kind of oil residue on a lot of that stuff, that's because I've been spraying those carbs with with penetrating oil, so that's why they look wet. So another thing I'm going to start doing now as well is spraying the exhaust manifold studs with penetrant as well. Again, I'm just going to take my time on this. I don't want to be snapping stuff off and creating unnecessary work for myself here. So there you go. There's the first look at it. This, I don't know if you can see this here or not, but this has been melted in here. I noticed that when I was getting the bike to crank over. That's kind of it's kind of euchred. So I do have a new fuse box for it. I bought another one. Let's pop these carburetors out of here. The airbox will not come out with the engine still in the frame, so this is basically a captive item, and so the task becomes trying to wiggle these carbs out of rock hard boots, no doubt. So after trying to pull these suckers out of here by hand, it wasn't working, so I figured the ratchet strap around the bottom of the bowls will help separate the carburetors. We're getting there very, very slowly. So I think what I'm going to try to do now is to basically tilt them this way. If I can clear those airbox boots, I can rotate. It's going to hit, or it is starting to hit right now, on the bracket that holds the throttle cable. So now this has been going on now for about an hour, and it's brutal. The tops of the carbs kind of hit the frame. So what I'm trying to do now is to get the front to kind of tilt this way. I did take these airbox boots off on the outside. All right, so I think the most logical thing is to remove these 2 boots. I'll do it through the inside of the airbox. All right, so I got the last 2 airbox rubbers out from the inside, and now it looks like I can just slide this guy right out. So that was the key, is getting those intake rubbers out, and then that solves a big part of the problem. So these are the intake rubbers that go between the carburetor and the airbox, and they're pretty darned hard. And if you squeeze them, they just kind of stay in that shape. Now, I thought I would go ahead and try to soften these up. I've done it many times before. I mean, this end is more pliable, but you can see that it is getting stiff. This end is really stiff. So what I use is, this is a 1 to 3 solution of oil of wintergreen and rubbing alcohol. And if you put these things in for, I mean, depending on how old they are and how hard they are, anywhere from, you know, I'll say, for me, I kind of do it for a day and then check them. And I'll go up to 3 or 4 days if I have to. I've never had the issue where anything swells with this stuff. Not to say that that couldn't happen, but I've never had it happen. Typically they just get soft and pliable and like new again, and they do not harden up when you take them out. They stay soft. So it's almost like a way to rejuvenate the rubber. So this is the main ingredient, oil of wintergreen. And it basically smells like spearmint or peppermint or whatever. I don't know. It smells darn good. That's for sure. So that's the active ingredient. And basically it's 1 part of this to 3 parts of rubbing alcohol. This is and you can get both of these ingredients at the drugstore, or if you're in the UK, I guess it would be the chemist that you would get this stuff. Like that. And I'm just gonna, this is kind of evaporated down a little bit over time, so I'm just gonna top this back up with the 2 ingredients. There we go, we're all successfully topped off. So they can stay in there now. I'm going to give those a day or 2, and then we'll see how they look. I'm going to do the same thing with these intake manifold rubbers when they eventually come off as well. So I'm taking a couple of days off from doing too much on this as far as disassembly goes, because all the fasteners are so badly corroded. I want to take a few days and just keep soaking them in different penetrating oils. Unfortunately, this is one of those fittings inside of the plastic housing. It's like a brass fitting that's melted into the plastic, and then the screw, the bolt goes in through the stay into the fitting. And yeah, this is one of those where when you break the fastener free, it actually doesn't break away from the threads, it breaks away from the plastic inside. So this bolt's basically just spinning, but it's not coming out. So I have to decide how I'm going to deal with that. But yeah, everything from the exhaust studs to all the fasteners, and anything into the frame is a worry, because typically with these things, it's like, I don't know what you call it, like it's like a riveted nut that fits inside. There's a hole in the frame, and then there's like it's like a threaded sleeve that's pressed in, and it kind of flares out to keep it secured in the frame. But the problem is, once they get corrosion from the threads to of the bolt to the thread and the receiving nut, and you crack it loose, sometimes it can actually break away from the aluminum. Its hold on that aluminum frame will let go, and it'll just spin inside, and that becomes a giant pain in the backside. So I'd rather take some extra days and just be patient and just keep soaking it 2-3 times a day in all of the fasteners, especially kind of this sort of stuff, anything attached to this aluminum frame. These are really bad. There's a Phillips, or a JIS, I should say, screw head in there, and there's barely anything left. There's just so much corrosion on that head, so I can only imagine how bad it is underneath. So I'm just gonna soak the living daylights out of everything and take my time. I mean, ideally I'd like to be taking the exhaust system off next, so maybe I'll move to, there's probably a couple of things I can get off, like the radiator and pull the wiring harness out or that kind of stuff, but I'm just gonna have to be patient, which I'm not good at. I'm taking a look down the intakes there. It's kind of hard to see the valve stems, but they're there. They don't look terrible. I mean, it doesn't look as bad as it could look on those valve stems after having sat for, you know, multitudes of years outside. They all look about the same. There's some corrosion right there in the intake track, but I mean, there's the other ones. Some carbon and crap on those. But at least it's not chock full of rust. That was my worry. Obviously the intake track wouldn't be rusty because it's aluminum, but I was worried about the valve stems and, you know, that kind of thing. So that gives me a little bit of hope. Yeah, so this pipe, although I've soaked it in penetrating oil, it's pretty much seized right on there. So since I'm replacing this header pipe, I'm going to end up having to saw this off right there, and then gonna try to get the pieces inside there out later on. So I can't pull the mid pipe or the silencer off yet. It'll all have to come off in one piece. Well, that turned out to be pretty easy. I soaked those head bolts for days and days, and then I used the big Johnson bar to crack the bolts loose and then just ratchet to take them off. Just a little bit of So in addition to the Allen bolt that was used to hold this top one in the past somebody got creative and just put a hex bolt in there, which of course then they put a bolt on nut on the back, but in order to get it out I had to take an old socket and grind it down so it actually would fit inside this this peg hanger here. So here are the carburetor boots after they've been soaking for 3 days. See how nice and soft they are. Versus the ones that haven't been soaked. Can't squeeze them at all. Same pressure. That's what wintergreen oil and alcohol will do for you. All right, just crack these oil lines off. Looks like it's going to be a messy job. I guess I should get my oil pan. The oil is pretty thin, smells like gas, so it's obviously at some point it suffered from probably some flooding. So a quick walk around as to where we are. Gradually, we're getting there, bit by bit. Yeah, I mean, there really isn't a whole lot of surprises so far. It's just a pain in the backside pulling everything apart. Not so far, not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I guess the penetrating oils that I've been soaking this thing in for forever has paid off in a big way, so that's good. I will say, as predicted, some of these are the riv nuts that are kind of fastened into the riveted into the frame, and as predicted, this one got seized onto the bolt and basically came out with there was a seat cushion and also a mounting tab for the side fairing here, so that's come right out. So I have ordered a riv nut gun and some aluminum riv nuts so I can replace that. This one also got a little bit chewed up, so I may have to re-rivet this one as well, but I guess good excuse to buy another tool. So the other thing that I've noticed here is that at some point in its past, this bike was painted day glow orange, fluorescent orange. You can see the remnants of the paint on all the frame members. You can see it kind of in here. It's kind of everywhere. Somebody obviously at some point also took the time to swipe all that off. It's kind of, you didn't get it out of all the nooks and crannies. That job will be mine. The other thing I've noticed here is that there is a broken piece of the steering stop. Again, an old bike might, if you know, been down the road a number of times, obviously, and so it looks like somebody actually has already fabricated a new steering stop for this. So it must just kind of touch against the fork here to stop it going to full lock. I was a little concerned about trying to weld on this because it's cast aluminum alloy. And being at the headstock, my worry would be that it could weaken the frame. I know in some countries, in some states, provinces, whatnot, it is not legal to weld on an aluminum frame like that on a motorcycle, precisely for the reason that it does weaken it. So yeah, well, as long as that works okay, I'm just going to leave that as it is, I think. So there we go. We're getting there bit by bit. I think the front brakes and all that kind of stuff are off it. A bunch of the wiring disconnected. I think now I got to move into here, disconnect some of the wiring that comes from the engine and get rid of some of this stuff. And then I have to decide how I'm going to take the engine out of this. Again, there's kind of two options here. One is I fish my engine crane out and basically put the boom this way in through the other side, but put it across here and strap the engine to it and then lift it out the side, because again, no removable frame section on this bike, I don't think. So that's one option. The other way is I could strip everything right down to the point where you know, I can take the wheels off, and so it's just basically the frame, the swing arm, and the engine, and lay it down on its side out here somewhere, and take the engine out that way. So here's the collection of primary sprocket covers that this is the one that came on it. It's all broken, smashed on the top. This is the first one I bought, and it was labeled as the wrong year, and it was actually the only one I could find at the time, but it had a crack in it. I thought I might be able to get that welded, but it turned out to be the wrong one. It was mislabeled, and eventually after much searching I found this one. Okay, a couple of wiring issues here. I guess when they swapped the engine out, they this is the neutral wire switch from the 88 engine. So they didn't put a connector in, they just chopped it off and soldered it. So I'm gonna unsolder that, and I'll put a bullet connector on there. The other thing I found was that the connector that comes from the generator has melted, so we're gonna have to do something about that, and also find out why that got hot. Something is not right there. So one comment I will make to anybody out there who's kind of aspiring to do some restorations on motorcycles, or you're doing one and you get angry with what you're finding as you start to strip it apart because somebody has bodged something or whatever. All I can say is you got to expect the worst. You can be disappointed, but don't be surprised. You might be a little ticked off and that kind of stuff, but don't be surprised, because when you get into bikes of this age, especially sport bikes, because they've been worked on a lot, you're gonna find so many bad things. Some of them will be, they'll defy belief when you uncover what some people have done or are willing to do to a motorcycle to keep it on the road, so to speak. I've seen all kinds of nastiness to bikes, and yeah, just don't be shocked, don't be surprised. Learn to expect the worst, hope for the best, and you might get something in between. I mean, just by one example, I did you may recall from an earlier set of videos, I had a 93 GSX-R 750 that I did, and I found that it had a detachable rear subframe, so basically there was bolts that allowed this to be uncoupled from the main frame and removed. And because somebody couldn't get the bolt out, they tried to drill it out, but they stripped it. And so they decided that the best thing to do was, instead of drilling it out properly and extracting it, that I even kept it as a souvenir. They decided that no, that should actually be sawn off with a hacksaw. And then it's okay, because when you put it back together, you just drill a hole through it, and they had a hole through the other side of the frame, and two pieces of steel plate, or they were just kind of a hardware store or angle bracket, really is all it was, and and two carriage bolts, and that's what was holding the subframe piece together. So I've kept that as a souvenir of one of the worst things I've seen people do, and that was a frame component that it was badly bodged. But yeah, you're gonna find it all. Don't be surprised. Well, that's gonna about do it, I think, for this video. We've got not too much left to do as far as the basic strip down goes. I think the big thing now is I'm gonna move on to just stripping off some of the stuff off the engine. I'll take the clutch cover off, and the clutch, and maybe the generator, and a few other things, just to try to lighten it up a little bit. And then I got to decide on the method I'm going to use to pull that out. Probably end up using my engine hoist crane again, as opposed to laying the bike on its side. Just personal preference more than anything. So we'll see how that goes. That'll be in the next video. And then once the engine's out, then I can pull the wheels off, and the swing arm and the shock, and the front end can come off, and all that kind of stuff. So stay tuned for the next video. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate everybody viewing. I appreciate subscribers, and I also appreciate very much all of the comments and questions I get. So thanks very much for tuning in, and stay tuned for the next episode in this Junk-Yard Slabbie saga.